All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. This is another episode of Success Stories Unplugged, and I am excited for our interview today. I have Coach Brad White with us. He's the defensive coordinator here for the University of Kentucky, and you're entering your, is it 8th year here at Kentucky?
Yeah, going in year 8.
And is that 7 years as the defensive coordinator, right?
So I've coordinated for 6, going into year 7, coordinating. Been here for 7, going to year 8 as a coach on staff.
That's awesome, and a lot has changed since you've been here. That first year here was, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first 10-win season, correct?
That was 2018, getting to the Citrus Bowl against Penn State.
How special was that group?
You know what, they sort of set the bar and set the standard for every group that's come after. And for me personally as a coach, it was sort of, okay, this is the bar that we have at Kentucky that every team after has to exceed and try to push. But they set that bar, and that's the expectations that from day one that I know.
I love that. So this show, we do things a little different. Most interviews you're doing are going to be, football, 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 football. And I kind of have a different spin on the way I do life. I do 3 jobs by tri-vocational. I pastor a church, I run a real estate company, and then I work in media. And on this show, I kind of collide the worlds.
Your standard 3 that they
yeah. So I try to just stay within those worlds and more talk about people of like the backstories, because I think a lot of people look at people in your positions, or we just did one with Coach Kenny Brooks, and we look at people in those positions and that seems unobtainable. So I kind of like to ask questions. Your journey to here was a little different than most would expect out of somebody position coach, things like that. And you actually, your first full-time coaching job, if I'm not correct, wasn't it at Murray State?
It was at Murray State.
They just made the World Series.
Made the World Series, and no, that's way back in 2009.
Yeah.
That first full-time job, which is huge. It's funny, before we did this, the last 2 days, I've been doing graduate assistant mock interviews just to get them experience in, okay, when you go into your first job interview, when you're going and like, it's not going to be the first time you've done it. Like you feel like you've got some experience. And I remember being a GA in 2008 and going to the convention and doing my very first interview for a full-time job. And it's never how you expect it to go. And we arrive, and the coach wanted it to be separate, so people didn't know that he was doing interviews. And so there was a cafe at a hotel that was closed at that time. So he said, hey, let's go. We went across the rope into the back where the lights are off. So I'm basically doing an interview in the dark.
In the dark.
And you can't make it up. But those are those stories that stick with you. And I want to help the young coaches as they go through and be like, all right, so you're ready for those moments so that you could take advantage of those opportunities.
I love that. You also then coached in Indy with the Colts.
I did.
And so every fan base you've been around right now is getting to experience joy, the Pacers in the finals. Right. So that's awesome. Let me ask you this. Your journey to where you've been at, which you've now, like you said, you've been here quite a while. Did you know all along this was the destiny, not necessarily Kentucky, but like I want to coach defense or I want to coach college football, or was it just kind of, was that always the plan, or was it I just wanted to go as far as this will take me?
Yeah, that's one coming out of college, it wasn't even coaching. I went into investment banking, and worked for Bank of America for 2 years, and that was kind of the thought. I had taken football as far as I could coming out of college, playing in it, and so then swinging back, obviously, once you get into the coaching profession, like you want to, you want to try to push yourself as far as you can go, but every step, whether it's going into your first full-time position coach or now you're going from college to NFL, like you always have those little doubts inside, hey, can I do this? And then my goal is always I wanted to coordinate. I did. That's kind of my career goal has been I wanted to coordinate a defense. I enjoy the X and O's, the chess piece of that, but you never know if you're meant for that, until you do it. And so, yeah, that was I'll forever be grateful to Coach Stoops to take the risk on, on a young guy that never had, coordinated a defense before, but it's worked out.
You talk about that being your goal to be a coordinator. And I was talking the other day with a real estate agent. I was doing a little business coaching with them. I've owned and sold a couple companies before I took this role. And we were just talking about consistency. You've been here now, 7, 8 years. There's been a lot of people come after you over the years, at least what we hear reports-wise. But what about Kentucky that made you want to stay here, be here, and build that longevity here?
Yeah, no matter what, as much as I love football, my passion is football. I always people are like, oh, what are your hobbies? I'm like, yeah, I've got football is my passion. It is my hobby. Is like I can't get enough on a daily basis. But it's about quality of life, and the Kentucky's just so special to me and to my family, and it's hard, to think about not being here, and so hopefully I don't ever have to think about that. But that's it. Hey, you got to take it day by day in this profession. But the way Coach Stoops treats the staff, the way he treats the players, the way the community rallies around this university, there's just so much about Big Blue Nation that once they wrap their arms around you, man, it's truly a family, and we love it. We go to all the sporting events. We try to be at everything from volleyball to soccer to baseball to
your kids got
my kid. Oh, they eat it up. They live and die for Kentucky, and the baseball team loses, my 7-year-old's crying. It's like
7-year-old. That's all he's known is here.
It's all he's known. And he was born in the fall of my final season there in Indy, so all he's known. My 4-year-old daughter, that's all he knows. And I was Air Force for 2. Indianapolis for 6, and here for 7 going on 8. So blue and white is all they know. They can't handle any other color.
That's awesome. I say that I've seen you at those other events, and this is no discredit to any other coaches or anything. You got to do whatever. I love it. Like most coaches, you're seeing them. They're sitting front row. They're on the billboards. They're trying to be on the jumbotron. Well, I was at a baseball game last year and saw you just sitting in the berm in your lawn chair. And you were like, I'm just back here chilling. And so you're actually taking in the sport, enjoying it. It's not just a PR thing for you. You're enjoying it.
We are the biggest fans of every Kentucky sports team. Now, I can't be a fan of football. I have to be involved. Now, my family, and my wife always jokes with me because you get so engaged as a fan, and she says, see, now you know how I feel on game day. Because you're like, man, just one more pitch or one more serve in volleyball, and you're at the end of your seat, and you're like, man, it's way harder to be a fan than it is to be in those moments. In those tense moments when everybody's at the end of their seat, it's so much easier to be involved, whether you're the player or the coach, than it is to be the fan because you have zero control.
So let me ask you this. You came here, you guys coming up, me and you were talking about Josh Allen, the 2018, the standard they set. Coach goes to the NFL, and you take over as the coordinator. You guys had a ton of success. The defense had been a staple here for a long time. And I'll just say this, I was a Kentucky fan before I got into media. I was born and raised just, 30 minutes from Lexington. We didn't always have that success before you guys came along, before Coach Stoops, and there were some good years with Coach Brooks and other people, not discrediting anything, but 10-win seasons, things of that nature. You guys even, I guess it was 2021, even had one of the top 15 defenses in the country. When you guys have set that standard, and then last year don't maybe reach the standard you would want per se, or Coach Stoops would want. How hard is that to juggle when you've pretty much seen success since you've been here? And what does that make you look at things and how to adjust going forward?
Yeah, I think what it forces you to do, it forces you to look in the mirror. And just like anything in life, I think there's times that maybe you can get complacent. Maybe you can just assume things will continue the way they always have been.
Yeah.
And I tell our guys all the time, you can't just roll the ball out and think you're going to have success. And that's in anything in life. Like as soon as you feel like you've made it to the front and you stop looking over your shoulder to see like, hey, listen, there are people
Yeah.
just nipping at your heels at every step of the way. And so it's easy to be the one in the back and you see everyone in front of you and you just like, all right, I'm just going to keep clicking them off. Man, I'm getting to the front. And then you get to the front and there's no one else in front of you and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to take my foot off the gas. And then everybody passes you by. And it's hard to reaccelerate and catch up. And so it really forced us to look in the mirror and say, okay, what do we need to do to again reaccelerate and catch those that have now passed us? And we take it very personal,
Yeah.
as coaches and as players. Those players in that locker room, they understand what it means to wear Kentucky on their chest, and it's. A lot of people talk about, oh, it's a different era and there's a lot of movement, and do they really understand? And trust me, the guys in that locker room that we have right now, like, there's a lot of pride when they put Kentucky across their chest. There's a lot of pride to wear blue and white, clothing, and they understand what they represent.
They do. And I've always kind of looked at it just from covering it. I've met some of the guys that maybe even come from a lower level. I remember even having a conversation with one of the basketball players that, I shouldn't say lower level, but not SEC.
Yeah.
And it seems like they almost take an honor in being here just from the interviews that I've seen. And that's really cool, especially when you see them make a jump. Going into this year, I followed you a long time on social media and stuff, even before I covered the team. How big of an aspect does your family and faith play into what you do day to day and the consistency that you've had in the role and the success you've had?
I think it is the driver for everything I do. It is like it and everybody within the building understands that. Mm-hmm. To the point that even when we have official visits on campus, we understand that, hey, coach from 9:45 to 11:15 will be at church with his family every Sunday. It does not matter. It doesn't matter if we get back at 3:30 a.m. from Mississippi State. We will be in church, and then I'll come in on Sunday and we'll rock and roll. So that is a non-negotiable for me and for my family, that my kids see that and understand that it's not just lip service, that, hey, listen, to be a man of faith or anybody in that role, like, you have to be willing to sacrifice. And whether that's whether it's time, whether it's sleep, whatever, anything that you truly care about and you love, you're willing to make a sacrifice for.
And I was with Coach Mingione on one of these episodes recently, and he talked about that. He said, when the Bible says that God asks for our first fruits, it's not just what everybody thinks about. It's our time.
Yeah.
That's got to come first. And he said the same thing, like, unless we're traveling playing a game on Sunday, where I'll be. And and I think that is something I've always admired from a lot of the coaches here, not just you and Coach Mingione, but since I've been in it, two of the coaches I've been able to see do that firsthand, especially have been you guys, and I honor and respect that. And I think that too sets a precedent to your kids that this is what we do, and this is so important. As far as the impact goes, and we were talking about the impact your faith has, your family has, how much of it is it still just awesome to get to see the impact you make on these kids day to day outside of football?
It's the greatest reward that we get. Everybody asks, hey, what's your favorite win since you've been here? Is it the Florida win? Is it when they rush the field? Is it on the, like, the wins are nice.
Yeah.
And trust me, and I understand for the fan base, it's and this is what we do. This is our profession, is to win football games. But for me, the greatest gratification is to see the growth in young men, to see where a lot of them have started, to see where they're at, to get those texts from guys from 7, 8, 10 years ago, guys that I this fall I had 2 former players from the Air Force Academy that I had coached, and they had sort of gone their separate ways. Well, one is now a training pilot for the F-22 Raptor, and
That's awesome.
this other player was he was transitioning into the F-22. And so now he was training his former teammate, and they took a picture together and sent it to me and said, "Hey, coach, look at it. We
ran into it. That's awesome."
And I was like, "Guys, send me pictures of your families. How are you?" And one's got a family of 5, one's got a family of 4, and like those are the things that bring me the greatest joy, and to see that transformation.
I love that. The thing that led me to ask that question was not this past season, but the season before when you guys won at Louisville. And we go back into the, finagled my way up to the front, and you were sitting up there with JJ. And of course, you guys didn't know at that time you were going to get him back for the following season. But that moment you had with him on that stage was very special. And that was very cool to see. And I think that moment, I was like, I walked out of there and I told the guy that was working it with me, I was like, yeah, Coach White cares for sure. Like that's something you could see in that moment. And I guess it has to make you proud with all the things that he's done since those moments, and the things and the impact he's making just by the platform, the field gave him, and the opportunity he went out from there.
It does. It touches you, and I was truly trying to hold back tears, in that media, and then to be able to get them back was awesome. But then like I said, when I was presenting him for the Witten Man of the Year, trying to hold it back again, like man, this is. I looked at JJ and I said, I told you I wasn't going to do it. I already got him out last year, but you realize how special of a young man he is, and his family, and everything that he's been through in the adversity. And so much about people talk about coaching and like, man, how much you've impacted, man, how much they impact and inspire me on a daily basis to be the best version of me, and to be as good a father as I can be, and coach. And so I draw so much more from the players than they probably ever get from me.
I love that. For you, we talked about the consistency you've had here, and you slightly hit on it. How much, though, and this is not the nits and grits of it, not what I know, but how much has college football changed over the last 3 years? And how have you guys had to stay consistent with who you are to evolve and figure out? And it's all the moving pieces, and the SEC's even expanded. There's just been so much.
You know what it comes down to, the landscape. How much has it changed over 3 years? The landscape is completely different.
Different sport.
It's like you went from the cold Rocky Mountains all the way down to the Sahara Desert. It's not even close. Like the two environments over 3 years, and it's the changing, and every day changes. But with that said, I don't think how you coach and how you interact changes. You adapt. Every generation is different. Every style. People are raised different. Like the use of technology and social media has transformed how young men and women sort of view themselves, and so now you have to play. You have to understand that role, and you have to understand mental health and how delicate it can be. So those things have changed, but in terms of pouring into a young man, that he knows that you care about him, it's not just about what you can get out of him, but they know that, hey, listen, whether I perform or not, this is coming from a genuine place. That will never change.
You often hear people just assume on social media and on talk shows and all those things, but all the changes, has it made you guys had to start doing a little deeper dive on the person when you're recruiting to make sure they're the right fit, because you're picking them up at a later stage, you're picking up like all these other factors, there's the NIL factor, is it made you have to do a deeper dive on the person to make sure they're the right culture fit?
You're trying, and that is sort of the tightrope you're walking, because so much when you, especially if you're referring to from a transfer portal, typically the window from, we're recruiting high school students starting in their sophomore year, right?
You're
and then
getting
we're getting to know that kid, the
years.
family for years, and you're digging into them, and you understand what you're going to get, and they understand what they're going to get from you. I mean, you're in a speed dating scenario, and a lot
transfer
of these
portals 2 weeks long.
Correct. I mean, there's 5 of us, right? And then there's a 30-second buzzer. You try to interact, and he's moving to the next seat, the next seat, the next seat. And so they're trying to find out about you. You're trying to find out about them. And then there's the competitive nature of collegiate athletics. You throw in all the other aspects of it. It's really hard, and you're trying to balance. We'll see that again. The landscape's going to continue to change and evolve, but
day by day.
At the end of the day, the great programs doesn't, not just football, but any sport. It comes down to that locker room, and our guys are going to have to bond quickly, and they're going to have to be willing to fight for each other. And you talked about last year, and I think the big thing that when we looked in the mirror, we didn't, as a staff, do a good enough job to enforce and place a priority on the locker room. Too much was probably on performance. And hey, listen, you win games. Yes, you have to know what your assignment is. You have to have the requisite talent. You have to have the X's and O's. All those things can play a part. But at the end of the day, when you hit the second half, when pressure's put down on you, if you've got cracks in your foundation of character, that's when things can go wrong, and that's when things can crumble. And so foundationally, I'm really excited about this group, because I truly think they care about each other, they care about this state, this university. There's a level of accountability that you need to be successful.
And I think too, just from the outside looking in, as I look at it from the business side, you'd have to, I guess, dive quicker, deeper, and figure out, how do I find my leaders in my locker room? Because let's be honest, in 2018, Josh Allen's been here 4 years. In 2021, Yusuf Corker's been here a while. And the Big Blue Wall, they've been the same offensive line for 5 years. So I guess identifying those locker room leaders are more important than ever when you're bringing in 15 new starters every year, or half of them from the portal.
And there's the identification factor from the coaches identifying, but I think so much has to be organic within that locker room. Correct. Guys just have to be we don't have time to W the night, right? Yeah. You've got to go and you've got to take advantage. If you know that you have a voice in that locker room, you've got to be willing to use it, and you got to be and so there's a big focus on us training up not just individual, but you got to train the whole team, and then the leaders will sort of naturally rise, but hopefully as many of those as we can get, the better. The more that are willing to step out of their comfort zone and push others to be better, push themselves to be better, we'll be a better team forward.
As I walked through the parking lot, we park across the street over there, the media, and as I walk through the parking lot on Saturdays, you see all the fans, and this is, where you're sitting is a lot of kids' dreams, or they, especially playing the college football scene, and as a kid that's looking up to a Brad White or a Mark Stoops or a Kenny Brooks or a Mark Pope, you can go down the list growing up in this state. What would be your recommendation to any kid as far as how do I reach my goals and dreams? If you're sitting in the seat that you said, I want to be a coordinator someday, that journey to success, what's the one line or two lines you could hit to somebody that to make it stick with them, to know that like you can reach that ultimate goal?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing I could say is you have the goal. You have the long-term goal. But I think so many just stay focused and fixated on the long-term goal. Hey, you got to drop your eyes.
Yeah.
The goal is out there, and I'll see it in my periph, but I've got to drop my eyes and I got to focus on
right
today.
here.
I got to be the best version of me today, wherever my feet are, right? That's where, because if I can do that and I can stack days, and we talk about this with our own players, just stack days. Before you know it, man, that stacking one day has become a week, and stacking a week has become a month, and stacking months, now it's a year. But if you're worried about, hey, where am I going to be in 4 years? Good luck.
Yeah.
Like good luck. Like we talk about development is two T's, right? It's transformation and it's time.
Yeah.
So to truly develop into the person that you want to do, it's going to take time. And allow yourself to get transformed through that process.
One of our leadership people from Texas at our leadership conference last week said to us, as like real estate owners and investors, is they said, just tell your agents, and get 1% better every single day, and in a year you'll be over 3.5 times better than you were. And I take that and I tell my agents or my employees that, like, I just have to focus on what's in front of me today and how can I perfect it and become better. Like you said, stack those days. I know you're a busy man, so I will ask you this. You coach the defense. You've been here a long time. Coach Stoops and the rest of the staff, there's been some turnover at the offensive. People been promoted. Different guys have come in, taken other opportunities. How important is, outside of some struggles last year, the defense has been the anchor here, and it's a lot of teams have been built off of that here. How important has it been for you guys to have that consistency of you and Coach Stoops working together over the last 7-8 years?
Yeah, I think anything in any organization, when you can have consistency and continuity of messaging, right, and style, like those that come in, it allows, we just talked about growth and development. Well, when that path and that blueprint doesn't change, then you know what to expect, and you're like, okay, I am on target. All right, I am moving. But if you're always changing what the blueprint looks like, then you can have doubts and you can question, like, am I really heading in the right direction? Am I really developing? And so I think the continuity that Coach and I have had from a defensive standpoint has given those defensive guys some comfort into, even if they're hitting a pit moment or they're struggling, it's like, hey, listen, we've been through this before. Yeah. Look at this guy, he's done exactly what you did, and guess what? He came out the other end. And then there's this comfort of, okay, you know what? I can stay the course.
Yeah.
And so that's really helped.
My last question is we've talked about, a lot of different things. And, the Bible says anybody that builds the foundation on the rock, it'll stand. Anybody that builds it on sand, it'll sink. And you guys have built that consistency here. I know we talked about last year a little bit, and we've mostly not talked about like the on the field stuff. But even just from me walking in here today, it seems like just the different coaches I've talked to walk into this office, there's a we're going to stay and go to work mentality here right now. So what message would you give to the fans? Coach Stoops has kind of done the same thing at other places, that we're going to get it back on track next year. I know you can't promise things, but like, what motivation would you give the fans to know, like, we're gonna go back to doing what we've always done here?
Yeah, I think the message would be is that we've looked at ourselves in the mirror, and we understand that, hey, there were things that we've had to adjust. But ultimately, we are not going to abandon what we've done and been successful. But there's things that you have to do that maybe they were complacent in certain areas. Mm-hmm. But we're in here and we are really committed to getting this thing back, because that bar is the bar. And that 2018, when I came in and we had that, like, that's what I know. That when we talk about it with players all the time. When you show that you can hit this level, well, guess what? You made the mistake, right? You show that you can do that.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to expect that. Well, we did the same thing here. We understand that, like, this is the expectation, and we are not going to shy away from that. And we are not pleased with what happened last year.
No.
But we aren't going to tuck our tails and run. We've met it head on. Everybody understands, where we have to get better across the organization, from coaches all the way down to players. And we're putting in the work to get there.
I love it. Love it. Coach, thanks so much for meeting with us. I know you're a busy man. You guys I've seen people going up down the halls like crazy here. I appreciate all you guys have done. Somebody growing up a UK fan. I didn't grow up with all this success, so I appreciate all that you and Coach Stoops and other members of the staff have done, and I thank you for being such a man of faith and family. It's cool to see from the outside. So I appreciate you hopping on with us today.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, Coach.